after that, but he
he was exactly
became
right.
president
That's
himself.
exactly what I was going to say. You'd think he'd be a pariah, but he came right back and won the presidency.
Well, so maybe Santorum's taking.
A little leaf from Governor Reagan's,
Yeah,
President Reagan's book.
Well, let's move to a different part of the world. This is Christian Science Monitor. Turkey closes its Syria embassy finally, and boosts aid to the opposition. The embassy closure was such a key regional player is likely to increase pressure on the Syrian government. Turkey also pledged, along with the U.S., to increase non-lethal aid to Syrian rebels. Now,
yeah, well, that's important. I think the United States and Turkey have reached an agreement to supply non-lethal aid. I'm not exactly sure what this means, non-lethal aid. Does this also include advisors, military advisors, for an example?
Very
Does
good.
it? It doesn't say that. One gets the impression that this is just communications on the kinds of aid.
And first aid, things like that.
First aid and all other kinds of aid, but maybe military aid as well.
Because that's what the anti-Assad faction really needs is direction and guidance.
Direction and guidance and all that.
Like in Libya, same idea.
Yeah, well, in Libya, of course, we did even more than that. We
right,
sent over these bombers.
But it was important for
send in
exactly. Send pros in to organize these guys, because it was a ragtag group over there.
I have a feeling that, although it doesn't say that explicitly, we are going to provide such a covert military assistance.
Yeah, I would think.
Yeah.
Well, it goes on to say, aside from hosting opposition groups, the Turkish government has also called on Assad to step down and targeted the regime with a number of sanctions. The main opposition group, the Syrian National Council, has said it wants to gather all the anti-Assad groups together in Istanbul to form a unified plan on how to remove Assad from power. Yeah, that's several groups or quite a few groups, each of them working.
Well, there are quite a number of. That's part of the problem.
And they bicker among each other.
There are many desperate groups, and they, as you say, they bicker. They do more than bicker. They really fight, if not physically, in all other ways amongst each other. They're very different. Some are real Islamists. Some are real Islamist types, Muslim Brotherhood types, really hardcore guys that we in the West don't necessarily like, right? Others are modern secularists, people that want to reform democratic government. These people are really opposed to each other, but very much opposed to Assad. Assad, on the other hand, fat chance he's just going to leave now that he has the blood of thousands and thousands of his countrymen on his hands. He can't just walk away.
Nah,
he'll stay to the bitter end.
I guess so, and he's got a lot of help from Iran.
Exactly.
But the failure for these groups to be cohesive is the main reason why foreign governments aren't sending arms there.
Yes, I think that's one of the reasons anyway.
You'd think the Western governments, at least, would join together these various anti-Assad groups, except for the Islamists.
Well, that's what they're afraid of, yes.
Well, no, but leave them out give arms to all the other factions.
You would hope, but look what happened in Egypt, and what group basically took control of the parliament in Egypt? The Muslim Brotherhood.
Well, because the majority of the population are fundamentalist Islamists, I guess. What's the story in Syria in that regard? Aren't they more secular?
The government was.
No. The population in general.
That's hard. Syria is a very disparate kind of place. I mean, the Muslims in Egypt are really quite homogeneously Sunni, but in Syria you have quite a different grouping. You have Sunni, you have Shia, you have the Alawite sect, as you know.
You have Christians.
You have Christians,
and
you have Kurds.
And
you have Kurds. Yeah. You have all of these. And Assad was very good at pitting them all against each other, right? Yeah. And now the point is, how are they all going to get together against Assad? That's not easy.
It'll be interesting this next year.
Yeah.
All right, this from Reuters. 2 years after President Obama signed into law a health care overhaul, the Supreme Court on Monday, that's today, takes up a historic test of whether it is valid under the country's constitution. The sweeping law intended to transform health care for millions of people in the U.S. has generated fierce political debate. Republicans say this will financially burden states, businesses, and individuals. At the law's core is a requirement that most people buy health insurance by 2014 or pay a tax penalty.
That's the core.
Which way do you think the Supreme Court will go on this?
Yeah. Well, what the government is now claiming is this is a tax. It's a tax that is, if you don't take it, it's a tax. Justice Breyer, who's quite liberal, really, on the court, has said this is not a tax. This is a requirement. This is really very different. It's like a fine. I really don't know how it's going to go. I mean, liberals, it may not have the classic liberals on one side and conservatives on the other take on this. And I think most people think it's about 50-50. But if they say that this mandate, the so-called individual mandate, if they strike that down, that's the heart of the whole thing. The whole thing will collapse.
It's more than that. As it turns out, in their haste to get this thing passed, it's so many pages, a few thousand pages, I think.
Oh, yes.
Congress forgot to put in a clause, severability clause. Now, what that is it says that if at any point in the future courts strike down any portion of this, the rest of it remains in effect. But they forgot to put it in.
Oh, really?
They forgot. It's in everything.
Yeah.
Just automatically.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, it's on most people's contracts
Well,
and
that's
anything
what
they
most
do.
people say, that if they strike down the mandate, the rest, however, still stands.
It can't without this
It
clause.
can't now without this clause. My, that's it.
Although the Supreme Court could decide to still
To
enforce it
still
that way.
enforce it. Right, I see. Right.
All right, so what else has our president been doing? This from Reuters. President Obama vowed on Monday to pursue further nuclear arms cuts with Russia, urged China to follow suit, and issued stern warnings to North Korea and Iran.
Yes, well, you know, he is in Korea now. He is kind of conveniently absent during this health care decision-making process with the court. And it was also interesting that on the second anniversary of the signing of health care, government said absolutely nothing about it. He spoke not a word about it, possibly because he realizes that in the country at large, it's become ever less popular.
Which is surprising because, you know, for the average American, well, how wonderful to not be dependent on a company for your health insurance.
Yes.
If you get laid off or you want to move to another one, you would think most of the country would love the concept.
What is even more surprising is it's grown more unpopular as time passes. You would think, as President Obama said, after the people would have it explained to them, right, they would like it.
I think so too.
Well, but that's not happened.
Well, no.
Whether you think so, Jason.
Because
it's not
most of the news coverage about it has been anti-Obamacare.
But Mr. Obama has explained it ad infinitum.
Well, still, but
right?
There's
for 2 years almost.
I know, but
For 2 years.
But yeah, but he's only one guy.
The President of the United States?
Well, still, he's only one guy.
I suppose.
But you have all these Republicans and all these other
But
people.
you have all the media most of the media is really quite friendly to this, you might suppose.
Well, maybe so, but still in all, as far as there might be 100 people that have gotten news coverage talking anti-Obamacare because of the Republican primaries and whatnot.
Yeah, maybe so, but you know, it does strike me as being slightly elitist to say that the people, after a couple of years, just don't understand it. And that if they really were smart enough to get it, they would really agree with it. That's a little off-putting, I think.
All right, fair enough. But we actually got off the subject on this one.
We did. I'm sorry.
This is, let's see, going on further. Acknowledging the United States has more warheads than necessary, Obama held up the prospect of new reductions in the U.S. arsenal as he sought to rally world leaders.
He's done great work in that field.
Yeah, I think so.
Great work.
And Russia's been reasonable about it too, I think.
Because they're paid for it.
Well, whatever, but
But yes, that's right.
they're less belligerent than in
Than
the
on
old,
most other things.
the old
yes.
Cold War years. Well, that's it for today, David. We've finished
Right.
everything, and so let me say thank you for tuning in today here at NewsDesk, and thanks also to our director, Melissa Minkoff, technical director, Tony Zergibel, video editor, Katie Merkolewski, and master control, Ben Mayman. Join us again next week for another episode of NewsDesk. That's channel 95 analog, 991 digital, or on the internet at wyou.org. Also now on YouTube at NewsDesk WYOU and Facebook at NewsDesk WYOU. Up next, the news with Amy Goodman. This is Jason Miller, WYOU broadcasting from Madison, Wisconsin. Bye for now.